Then the Lord began to open my eyes. He said, do you know what? Those who didn't obey that instruction ended up coming to witness the marking of former colleagues. We may be colleagues at the instruction, but at the obedience, we are different. Obedience. You are never marked as a disciple to sit. You are marked as a disciple following instructions that have been given. And so you follow that in the model of the disciples, and the disciples that came after those disciples, and the disciples that are still here today. You find obedience. 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 He said it, I will do it, no matter who leaves me. These things are easier taught than done. Many of us are no longer men of God, but men of men, who bother about our ranking according to someone else's order. But God is looking for those who will do. You are not truly a disciple until people leave you alone. And often they will leave you alone for following him. May I follow him and others leave me, than leave him and others follow me. Obedience. Obedience. That's how Paul the apostle was marked. Even when the church, the early church, was afraid of him, they didn't want to join themselves to him. Paul knew that he had been called. And he kept doing it. I've observed people change their minds. Human beings are one of the most unstable. That is, those who are not born of God. Very unstable. The one who castigates you today can celebrate you tomorrow. The one who pulls you down today can announce you tomorrow. Just keep following him. Obedience. If you leave this apostolic invasion, closing your notebooks again, postponing the instructions the Lord has given to you till another convenient time, then you were not marked. Those who are marked as disciples are those who will obey at every cost. Every cost. There are times you may find yourself weeping that those you thought will back you up are forsaking you. It's part of the discipleship role. But obedience at every cost. Number 3. Is consistency. No one is marked as a disciple because they did something once, but that there is consistency. So you find someone the same thing for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, 70 years. You have found a disciple. You found one who has been marked. Consistency. John chapter 8, verse 31 and 32. I believe it is. John chapter 8, verse 31 and 32. Give me the King James, please, if you have it. John chapter 8. Yes, verse 31. It says, then Jesus said to those Jews which believed on him, if ye continue in my word, then ye are my disciples indeed. Continue. Consistency. In consistency comes the marking of the disciple. Consistency. What God sent Paul to preach, he didn't change. What he sent Peter to preach remained consistent. Consistency. You can't be moved around with every wind of convenient doctrine. There must be consistency. We're discussing with the apostle today, for instance, if anything doesn't bear witness to prayer, to the study of the word, to stewardship, it's not discipleship. And it's not doing it when convenient, it's doing it consistently. Not when others agree, but doing it consistently. No matter how many play down on living a life that pleases God, you better know where you stand. Consistent. Consistent. The marking of a disciple comes with consistency. And so these things must be taught again, so that the disciples of a new generation may be raised. And not only raised, but marked. This thing is not a hit and run system. This thing is not a hit and run approach. This thing is not instant noodles. This thing takes cooking consistently, staying in prayer, staying in the word, isolating yourself, that is light may shine forth. These are the realities of what marks a disciple. Are you ready for number 4? Suffering. I came to announce to a generation that disciples are not marked in the place of comfort. There is a place of suffering. So Paul the apostle said that I may know him and the power of his resurrection. And today's disciples, in quote disciples, or church people, stop there. That I may know him and the power of his resurrection. Finish it. And the fellowship of his sufferings, being made conformable to his death, that I may know him. Apostle is very good in teaching this one. We are raising a generation, if we are not careful, that will deny Christ with very, very, very bold face. Do you know him? I have never heard him. And somebody say, how are we denying him? We are already denying him now. It's already ongoing. I began to wonder, what kind of marking did the disciples of old have that they celebrated at suffering? They were beaten and bleeding, and they were praising and thanking God for the privilege to suffer for him. Part of your marking comes through your suffering. The suffering I'm talking about here is not sickness and the rest. No. It is persecution. Standing for the gospel, even at the expense of losing your life. I said in the morning, persecution is not the one we are seeing on Facebook and Instagram. That's not persecution. When it begins, you will know. But these disciples were so marked. Where John received the revelation of the end time was in the place of suffering. Some of the most exciting, joy-filled letters from Paul came from prison. Suffering. There is a mark that must come upon us that will make us embrace the suffering of this present time, knowing that it is not compared with the weight of glory that lies ahead of us. Suffering. There is a mark that comes upon a man, comes upon a woman in the place of suffering, in the place of persecution. You are following instructions, and those that were with you become against you. It comes with a mark. It comes with a mark where you would rather follow God than follow what is popular. It comes with a mark where you will not mind losing your name to keep his name, where you are not concerned about your reputation, where thy kingdom come becomes your heart desire. Suffering. Suffering. Oh, the mark that comes through suffering. Jesus, perfect example, went through it. Moses would rather suffer with his brethren than be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. What have you lost for following God? What have you given up for following him? Thank God for the revelations, but it will not cancel the place of this. Paul said that I may know him. And there is what I need to know as I fellowship with him in suffering. The marking of a disciple.